entire syllabus, we are going to consider the university database. So before start with the next section, I am going to tell you some fields, or we say tables, main things in the university database, because we are going to use it as an example. So everywhere these words we are going to use, and that's why before start with the next part, I'm going to tell you what is university database, what are the main fields in the university database. So when we consider the university database, as I had told that the first that consider is the student. Now when we consider student, what different fields or characteristics of the student? So many characteristics are there, such as ID, name, department name, total credits, along with that address of the student, phone number of the student, birth date of the student, admission registration number of that student, admission year of that student. But all these things considered here, it is not possible, and that's why those who are very important, that characteristics are considered here only. Actually, when we consider the actual database, when we going to create the actual database, any application, then in that case, these things also we need to consider. Only ID, name, department, total credits are not sufficient. Address, birth date, registration number, year, application, everything is required. But here we are going to consider only these 4 characteristics for simplicity. Otherwise, it becomes very complicated to understand, and that's why for simplicity, that so that you can understand it in proper way, we consider only these 4 characteristics. Another thing along with the student, the next is the instructor. The ID, name, department name, and salary. These 4 characteristics we are going to consider here. Along with that, the designation, qualification, experience, these also important thing. Address, phone number of the instructor. But here we are going to consider only these 4. Then department. So university, which departments are there? What is the name of the department? In which building the department is located? What is the total annual budget of that department, etc. Then in that department, what are the different courses? Course ID, title, department name, credits, etc. For example, if we consider our department name, computer science and engineering, where it is located in main building. Okay. Budget, suppose something budget is there, annual budget of our department. Then in this department, what are the different courses? Who are the instructors of this department? Who are the students of this department? For example, if we consider the courses as second year, SY, TY, BTech, title, or you can say directly the courses, such as we consider the course ID as we are given it UCSE 0503. Course ID, title is database engineering, department name computer science engineering, total credits are there 3. So under these courses, some sections are there. What is the course ID? UCSE 0503, section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections are there under this course. For which semester this course is, for which year, etc. So this is the basic information. Teachers, who is going to teach which section, who is going to, which students are takes this section, all these things are there. So this university database we are going to consider here as an example in this throughout syllabus. And that's why you must know about the basic things that I am telling you now. Student, department, courses, instructor, because these words again and again I am going to repeat as examples. Now see, this about all the introduction to the database. But before database comes in use, what was used previously? What was used previously? So before database comes in use, the previously the traditional file processing system was used. Traditional file processing system or file based system means your operating system files. For example, Excel. We use the data. Also, we can store the data in Excel. We can store the data in Word. We can store the data in PDF. It is also possible. So Traditional file-based system was previously used, but this traditional file-based system has so many drawbacks, and that's why we use the database management system or DBMS. Now here we are going to see what are the drawbacks of this file-based system first, and then we start with the database system. Now here as I told that we are going to consider part of university organization which keep the information about the instructors, students, departments, courses offering, etc. Now one way to keep the information on a computer is to store it in operating system files. Simple operating system files also we can store the information. Now when we store the information with this operating system files, which different application programs are required? So different some examples are given here. Suppose new students are added. So need to write an application program to add the new students, instructors and the courses. If new students are added, new instructors are added, new courses are added. If for example some instructors are left the college, we need to delete that instructor name or their information from the files also. Then some new courses are added, then we need to add the information about that courses if some courses are removed. For example, IT is merged with computer science. So whatever the information related to the IT previously stored, it need to be removed. So in that case, need to delete that information. And some cases it is need to update the information. So these are some kind of application programs are required. Then register student for the courses, generate class roster. For example, your class roster means your roll number, your name. According to we can arrange the attendance of that, manage the attendance system of the student, assign the grades to the students after the completion of the exam, compute the CGPA and generate the transcripts. So many application programs need to write there. Now see, new application programs are added to the system as need arises. So whenever a need arises, it is necessary to write a new application program. And every time creating such a program, it is a heavy task. So a typical file processing system is supported by conventional operating system. The system stores permanent record in various files, and it needs different application programs to extract records from and add records to the appropriate file. Means to add student need to write an application program, to delete the student need to write the application program, to extract the information we need to write some application program. So that is the conventional file processing system. Now we are going to see in detail what are the drawbacks of this conventional file processing system with examples. So the first drawback, 1 minute. What is the first drawback? Data redundancy and inconsistency. What is the first drawback? Data redundancy and inconsistency. Now see, since different programmers create the files, now it is not possible that the overall period of time or the same program is there, programmer is there associated with that enterprise. It may be possible that first 2 years one programmer is there, after that next 2 to 3 years another programmer comes. So every programmer may store the information in different types of files, and also application programmers are write the program in different programming languages. It is also possible that the programs whatever the written there to retrieve the initially suppose it is written the application program in C language, next the application program is written in C++, then Java, then .NET. It is possible that every programmer write the application program in different programming languages. This is the first possibility with the conventional file processing system. Another thing is that it store the data redundantly. Now, what is mean by redundancy? So, the data redundancy means duplication of the data. I given here one example. Suppose Rohan is the student who is registered for 3 courses. He is registered for suppose maths, music and physics. The information which is stored in this course is the name of that student, then address of that student, phone number of that student. Okay. The same in the music, again the name is stored, address of the student is stored and phone number is stored. And the physics, name of the student is stored, address of the student is stored and phone of that student is stored. Now the Rohan is, as he is registered for all the 3 courses, here the Rohan comes, here also Rohan comes, here also Rohan comes. Whatever the address, for example, suppose Kolhapur is the address of that student, then a detailed address with Kolhapur, phone number 91 something, 91 something, 91 something. Now what happens here? The name is required there in all the courses, but as you see the address and phone number, it is duplicated in all the 3 courses. Suppose there are thousands of students and all these students are registered for multiple courses and everywhere we store and along with the name, address and phone number, then it is require more storage, higher storage. It leads to higher storage and access cost. So whenever we access, it retrieve the data from all the courses. So that access cost is also increased and it require more storage, and that's why storage cost is also increased. That is, and duplication of the data, that is redundancy or the duplication of the data that need to avoid first. That is the major drawback of file processing system. Another word that I am going to teach you here, data inconsistency, and this word is very important because I am going to use it up to the recovery unit every time. Now what is data inconsistency? Now you can see here the Rohan has his address and phone number. It is stored in 3 courses. If the Rohan is registered for 5 courses, the address and phone number is duplicated in 5 courses. After some days, the Rohan changed his address. From Kolhapur, suppose he is shifted to Sangli and want to update. What is required here? Need to update that address everywhere wherever it is stored. If it is stored in 10 files, need to update it in 10 files. But if this is not reflected everywhere, if this is not reflected everywhere properly, then whenever the address is retrieved, the wrong address may be retrieved. The wrong information may be retrieved, and that is known as data inconsistency. That is known as data inconsistency. Is it clear what is meant by data inconsistency? Again, I am repeating, the student name and address, phone number, if it is stored in multiple files and after some days the address is changed by the student, it is necessary to reflect that address in all the places where it is stored. But if it is not done, the address is only changed in 1 or 2 courses, remaining courses if it is remains as it is, and when the information related to the Rohan is retrieved, wrong address may be received by that person. And that is known as data inconsistency. That is the major drawback of file system to store the data. See, this drawback is removed in database, and how it is removed we are going to see in next units. Now the next one, difficulty in accessing the data. Suppose one clerk need the information such as name of the student and the name of such students who leave some postal code, particular postal code. So there are 2 options. Okay, there are 2 options for that particular clerk. One option is that the first option, the clerk need to go manually through that entire file, where the student records are stored. First find out that student record with some postal code, and then from that retrieve the names. From that retrieve the names. Second option is that the clerk asks the application programmer to write a program. The programmer write a program in such a way that the name of the students with that particular postal code the clerk can retrieve. Suppose after some days, same clerk, suppose after some days, the same clerk want the name of the students who has earned the credits greater than 10. So in that case, again the clerk has two options. The first option is that he goes manually through that file, find out first all the records with credits greater than 10, and from that retrieve the name of the student, or ask the application programmer, second option, to write the program. To write a new program such as the clerk get the name of the students whose credits are greater than 10. So in this way, whenever a new application is there, every time the new application program need to be write. That is the major drawback of file processing system, that difficulty in accessing the data. Now the next one, data isolation. So as already in the first time I told that the multiple file formats may be used, and also the programs may be written in different programming languages, and then whenever a new programmer comes, new user comes for that particular system, it is very difficult for that person to retrieve the data if there are multiple file formats and the programs already written in different programming languages. Now the next one, and the very important, integrity problem. So again the integrity word is very important when we consider the database management system. So integrity problem means what? First thing, that in most of the cases whenever we store the data in files or in the database, there may be some constraint on the data. There may be some constraints on the data. For example, what is the type of constraints are there? If we consider the roll number of the student, can we give -1, -2, -3 in this way? So the constraint is that roll number should be always greater than 0. 0 is not there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So whenever the data is entered for the roll number, that should be greater than 0. Suppose such kind of constraint we need to apply. Another, normally in the bank, balance should be greater than 0. Balance should be greater than 0. When we consider the account, balance should be greater than 0. In other case, if we consider the name, name should be always characters. Name should be always characters. So in this way, if there are some constraint, how to apply this constraint? That is known as integrity problem. Now, how to apply this constraint on the data which is stored in the files? The application programmer write a program in which such constraint is applied, that roll number of the student should be greater than 0. Balance of the bank account should be greater than 0. So in this way, a application program need to be right. But if the constraint is changed after some days, if the constraint is changed after some days, for example, BTech honors, we are considering BTech honors course now. So BTech honors course, the credit for the first year, or the we say CGPA for the first year should be greater than 9.5. Then only such students will get the admission for BTech honors. That is the first constraint or the initial constraint. The application programmer write an application program forcing this constraint that the students who are enrolling for BTech honors should be CGPA greater than 9.5. But after some days it is changed. Then in that case, The new constraint is that CGPA should be greater than 9. So what the application programmer need to do? The application programmer need to update the previous written program where now CGPA should be greater than 9. Then that students only allow to apply or enroll for the BTech honors. So that integrity constraint problem, whenever it is changed in the simple file processing system, a new application program need to be write. But in the database management system, queries are there. We are going to see simple queries. So simple query is there. Using that query, you can apply the constraint. And how that constraint we can change or how the constraint we can apply, that we are going to see in the SQL part. But only remember that integrity problem may create in the file processing system, but it is not the problem of database system. Or changing the integrity constraint, it is easy in the database management system. Now the next drawback of file programming system, that is atomicity problem. Now atomicity, again the one of the important word in the database system, that problem is there in the file processing system, atomicity problem. Now see, we consider here one example to learn or to understand the atomicity. What is mean by atomicity? Consider that there are two accounts or two departments, Department A and Department B. Department A and Department B. Now, initially the Department A has balance 1000 and Department B has balance 2000. Now, suppose we want to transfer $500, okay? $500 from account A to account B. What the program is there or what is the application is there? Transfer $500 from account A to account B. Now the program is written by the application programmer, and during the execution of the program, during the execution of this program, if a failure occurs, in such a stage that the amount is debited from account A, removed from account A, but it is not credited to account B. Before that, if a failure occurs, then in that case, it may be possible that the amount is debited or removed from the account A, but not credited to account B. So what happens at the end? Account A 500 and account B 2000 as it is. So before the application, execution of the application, the sum of A plus B is 3000. And after that execution, it is 2500. Why it happens? Because the failure rate. And as it is failed, the data is wrong result we can get here. And that is known as data inconsistency. Result in data inconsistency. Why it happens? Because only debit happens here, credit is not happens here. And that's why it results in data inconsistency. How to avoid this data inconsistency then? For that, either both the operation to be performed, debit and credit, either both the operation to be performed or not at all, that is known as atomicity. That either perform entire operation or not at all, to avoid the data inconsistency, and this is not possible to achieve in the file system. Achieving the data atomicity is not possible in the file processing system, but in the database management system it is possible to achieve this atomicity. And the, again in detail we are going to study it in the 5th, 6th unit, the atomicity concept. So that is only related to the definition of atomicity we can say here. concurrency, concurrent access. Concurrent access by multiple users. So as I told you previously that to improve the performance of the system, faster retrieval of the data, multiple users are allowed to access the database simultaneously. Okay, for example, Moodle you are using. So Moodle, all the students are using Moodle at a time. All the students are using Moodle at a time. Means concurrent access is allowed to increase the performance of the system. But this concurrent access need to be controlled. This concurrent access need to be controlled. For example, okay, for example, again we consider that there is an department A with balance 10,000 with balance 10,000. Now, suppose there are two clerks. There are two clerks, clerk 1 and clerk 2. Both are updating this balance simultaneously as concurrent access is allowed. Suppose this clerk retrieved $500 and this clerk retrieved $1,000. Suppose the clerk 1 retrieved $500 and clerk 2 retrieved $1,000 from this balance. Both are doing concurrently. Now this clerk, what value the clerk write? 9,500, and what value the concurrent write? 9,000. The second clerk, 9,000. Now what happens? The first clerk write the value of account balance as 9,500 and second clerk 9,000. Now whoever write the last one, update the last one, that value is stored in the database. Means if this clerk update last, then this value is stored in the database. If this clerk update at the last, then this value is stored in the database. But whoever store the values, update the values, is it correct? Is it correct? No, it is not correct. But why? Because this clerk retrieve 500, this clerk retrieve 1,000, then actual value remain should be 8,500. Actual value remain should be 8,500. But why this happens? Because both the clerks concurrently updated the values. And one updated to 9,500 and another updated to 9,000. And that's why the whatever the value, the last value updated, it is stored in the database. And again result in data inconsistency. Now this concurrent access, how it is avoided in the, and this problem inconsistency, it is avoided in the database management system using different concurrency control protocols. And that the entire unit we are going to study in unit number 5. So that is about the concurrent access by multiple users. So that problem create in the file processing system, but in the database management system, this problem is solved using concurrency control protocols. And the last drawback of file processing system is the security problem. Now see, it is not necessary that all the users see the entire database. It is not necessary that all users see the entire database or retrieve the entire database. When we consider our Moodle database, so the students has not given any access. The student can only retrieve or see the details, they can only update. But as an instructor in the database management system course, I can upload the files, I can remove the files, whatever I want, I can do. Why? Because that privilege is given to me. But that privilege is not given to you as a student. Means not necessary that all users use the entire database. When we consider the bank enterprise, it is not necessary that all persons or the customers see all other customers balance. Not necessary. The customer can see only his records. What is his balance, what are his deposits, what are his savings, loans, etc. The customer can see his only balance or only records, his own records. But the bank manager can see all other customers records or entire customer records. Loan department can see only the loan related records. Account department can see only account related records. In this way, it is not necessary that all users see the entire database. What is the purpose of security? For security purpose. And this security, it is not possible to provide in the file processing system, but in the database system, such kind of security is provided by giving the privileges. And how for that? Again, the queries are there, simple queries are there to give the privilege to that particular user for that particular database part. And in this way, security problem is solved in database management system, which is normally occurs in the file processing system. That is about the drawbacks of file processing system. Again, I repeat it in short. The drawbacks of file processing system: data redundancy and inconsistency, difficulty in accessing the data, data isolation, integrity problem, atomicity of updates, concurrent access by multiple users, and security problem. So these are some problems that occurs or drawbacks of using file processing system, and all these are covered in the database management